All right, today we are talking about the affiliates that decide to leave the community, what it's like, how they're going to rebrand, and what their identity will be. To help us discuss it, we have Todd on the call as always, but then Caleb Nelson, former box owner, my former partner at CrossFit Clifton Park, who then eventually rebranded to Purebred Athletics, de-affiliating from CrossFit. So welcome, Caleb, to the show. You've been on before, but welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be back.
So for the record, these guys already made fun of me prior to the show, so we can kick off and get to serious business right away. So I'm going to kick it off with this first, and we can go from here. These boxes are de-affiliating. Todd, I sent you a message this morning from someone's Instagram that was basically, hey, we're rebranding community because we don't stand behind CrossFit. I'll read it, actually. I'll read it right here. Not all of it, but we are taking steps to rebrand the gym in a way that does not disrupt the service we provide to our members. We're committed to helping our community optimize health and fitness using the CrossFit methodology. So I sent it to Todd. I'm like, what's wrong with this? And it's obvious. Hey, we're rebranding using the CrossFit methodology. That's my biggest gripe with this. Let me kick it to Todd first, Caleb, and then I want to hear how you navigated that. So Todd, what's your opinion on that?
I mean, that's the just like I said to you, it's like they're proud of the methodology, proud to use it, but they're not willing to come with, take everything that comes with it. Now, and needless to say, obviously right now you're not terribly excited about what else comes with it. But if you were going to pull away from the CrossFit brand, then you need to pull away from CrossFit. Like it's not, I can use the methodology. I'm going to do everything the same. I'm just not going to pay my affiliate fee. Like, what are you talking about? What are you doing? Like, I remember before this incident happened at a level 1, not too long ago, we had some participants that were from a gym that was not an affiliate. And they made a point to say, hey, we still do CrossFit. I don't know why you guys shun us from the community. We do Helen. We lift, we snatch, we still do CrossFit. We just don't call ourselves CrossFit. I don't know why you guys have a problem with that. It's like, because you are stealing from something. Like, you're taking something and using it and not giving credit where credit's due. We're paying the small fee to use that methodology. So
yeah, love or hate the man. Love or hate the man right now. It's his IP.
Right.
I mean, and Caleb, you and I have spoken about this before, and one thing you've said that's kind of true, I want to hear you say it to the audience, is that's a downfall of what CrossFit did.
Yeah. So if I was to really take a deeper dive into some of the statements right there, did he start this business to get credit, or did he start this business to change the world? And from that alone, if you're doing things for credit, cool. Like, that's very, but if you did it to change the world, you did it. And he did it in a way with an affiliate model that changes things very fast, right? It's low barrier to entry. You have easy access. You get a lot of things really quickly, and you can both and max impact. And
whose house is making all that noise? Is that you, Caleb?
Not mine.
It's cutting in and out to me. I can't hear it.
You got a nursery going on there? Is Lexi running a nursery behind you?
Nobody else is in my house right now. It's just me.
Okay. Might be Todd.
I'll start over then.
No. You were pretty coherent. Just a little choppy.
When you think about that, that's what they optimized for, and that's a decision. Whether it was conscious or subconscious is really irrelevant, because they reap the rewards of that. And I fully agree. Like, I'm a not affiliate, and I will fully accredit the fact that much of my career launched because of any association to it, and it changed the fitness industry like bar none. Impact, awesome, that's great. And I personally believe like that's where it went. Now, what I see CrossFit leveraged, right? If people want to like get into the nitty gritty of what it is, like they're selling fitness, right? And that's a very different thing to sell in this day and age. But they had to gamify it, and that's where they leveraged the CrossFit Games. That's what made it attractive. If we really like take a big like overarching vision of this, they made a game, and you could play it from your own house, or you could play it from the space down the street. Cool.
Which in fairness, was gamified before the games. Coach Glassman talks about the first time Greg Amundsen came in, and he's like, "You're going against that guy." And
Certainly.
Greg Amundsen has said, "I never looked at exercise like that."
Certainly. And I'm not saying that's bad or good, but remember, early adopters are going to be attracted to that part of it anyway. It blew up, and let's give it credit where credit's due. The games is very attractive, and there became a point, and this can lead to quickly where I started to find my disagreements, where I eventually no longer found it was the right fit for me, is that it attracts a very specific audience. The words "forging elite fitness" speaks very directly to a very specific personality type, right? And if people want to say words don't matter, look at what 2 words in one tweet did, right? So let's take that right there. That attracts a very specific persona. And one of the biggest things that people inside the community typically say is CrossFit is for everybody. Now, once you're in it and you're behind the closed door, behind the thing, you're like, oh yeah, like this is all the stuff. I get it now. But until you don't get that, 99% of people are looking for a gym or any facility in general because they want to lose weight. Nobody actually cares about how much you can clean and jerk until you get inside of a CrossFit gym and says, cool, let's learn how to clean and jerk. Let's remember that it is a box owner who happens to typically be a former athlete or somebody who like found it through this one way, shape, or form and was attracted to the games or whatever it was, and then put their own subjective spin on like, I like this thing. And then other people should do it too, because I found it to be that way for me. Now, I probably speak from a very strong standpoint and like emotional pieces of this because I also grew up in a cult and like strong structures and like things that worked well for one thing.
That's another topic, Todd. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
As we look at similarities in between cultures, right? And we want to talk cult or whatnot, like on Every Second Counts, Wellborn discusses, hey, is CrossFit a cult? Well, yeah, he goes down the list and goes, yeah, like by that definition, it is. So by virtue of that, it attracted certain personality types. And when I started to get to a point when there was the market flooding, which is a great thing, like, again, let's talk impact. It got a lot of people interested in health. There's a new way to do it. It can be a game. It can be fun. I think that's amazing, right? And I like anybody who wants to argue that he did not do that, out of their mind, right? So the other part of this is the convenience, right? And this could go very deep, but like anybody who wants to say like this, like this is a polarizing statement. Again, do I think it's smart? Personally, no, I don't. Like shit, like that would, I mean, somebody should not have sort of told them like, don't do that. That's stupid. Again, that's my opinion. But Glassman's been polarizing for ages. And in this day and age, like where it's not cool to be polarizing, people are stepping off the bandwagon. And like that's also what you wanted to be polarized. And he also pushed you to a polarizing place in this world. So it happens to be where he pushed the line too far. And this is where he's going to start to see a lot of that. That is an effect of a decision of how this whole business structure was set up. Again, bad or wrong, different, it doesn't matter. He changed things. If he maximized for impact, he did it. Now maximizing for credit, now we're at a whole different place in this world, right? From a personal standpoint, other people saying, hey, I do CrossFit too, right? Like if it's supposed to be that accessible that anybody can just hop on HQ and say, I'm doing CrossFit right now, like I do the workouts. Again, if you're selling it, that's a very—
They're not making money off of it.
That's where we're
not disagreeing with that, but that's part of the fact. Like that's whether people, times people came up to me and just said like, you guys are doing CrossFit. Like, oh, I went to like a client said like, oh, I was doing CrossFit down the road at blank Globo gym with somebody. And the trainer themselves says like, I didn't do that. I just did some like cross, and I've talked to the people. They're like, no, I'm just doing some different cross training stuff. Like that's the product of like, you made it very vague and very accessible. So the consumer is going to have their own consumer confusion. It's a good thing. You know, it's going to come with both, right? You're going to be very popular very fast, but now you're going to come with if CrossFit is everything, then it's nothing at the same time. So you're going to me, at a certain point, you hit a breaking point and you start to lose your leverage in saying this is IP, right? Because you can't patent squats. Squatting existed beforehand.
And you can't even patent squatting for time.
You can't
get it. I mean, and You go on Peloton, there's Tabata classes. Roz is basically doing CrossFit through Peloton.
Right.
But let's let Todd chime in.
Well, I think we're on the same page. Like we all agree with that. It's not the fact that people are doing squats and kettlebell swings. It's the fact that they're implying that they're still calling it CrossFit. They're just not willing to pay the piece that they should. So if you don't want to call it CrossFit, then step away and don't do that. Now I'm curious. So the way you made it sound to me is that you decided to unaffiliate because of the I guess the exposure to the CrossFit Games. Was that it? Was you felt like people thought that everything was the CrossFit Games and that was hurting the clientele that had the potential to come to your gym? Is that what you're saying?
That was part of it. I mean, and don't get me wrong, like, please, both of you play devil's advocate against everything. Like, Jay and I had a fallout. I was pissed at the world. Everything that resembled like what I was upset at, I was just like throwing to the side. And at this place in business, like knowing where I am now, like don't get me, I put myself in a shit spot, a real shit spot afterwards, like financially and like in life because of anger and emotion. So when people I'm seeing right now, and don't get me wrong, people want to disaffiliate, like I'm not going to tell you no, like live your best life, do the thing and live by your truest values when you're of a level head. My background is a little more like I studied kinesiology. I was always very intrigued by like recovery, like injury prevention. And yes, with the competitive side, what we were seeing was like anything anybody cared about, like the games would happen. Like what did Rogue do? They would sell like blank things. We just sold off our Rogue blocks that we bought just because like they had them at the games.
Remember those? We bought those.
But you guys did that, right? You're saying that you bought that stuff from the games?
We bought those. They were the blocks that you used one year to get shorter people to the pull-up.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. The little dense rubber things. Yep.
So
they're a bitch to move also.
This is if you look in general marketing, what do you do? Like say, here's my system. Here's the thing that goes along to solve that problem. Buy my thing to go with it, right? Like all of it became part of this cyclical thing. And that's not a bad thing again, but that's playing to the game of it. And everybody wants to say like, it wasn't part of that. Well, it was. And the number of times I would go into a group meeting with other box owners, there's one where people were trying to create this New York State games, whatever. And I'm looking at everybody, I'm like, cool guys, this is great. But like, I'm looking around at all of you and like 2 of you of these boxes are more competitive. And then I had one person, I pointed them out and be like, so you guys are one of like the competitive one. They're down the road, and they're some of the majority of them were their clients, or my former clients. And I'm like, so you guys are more like the competitors? Like, no, actually, we're more like Gen Pop. And like, I'm like, you literally don't even know what you guys come off at. Like, you're 20 to 25-year-old as a demo, and that's a very different demo than 40-year-old moms. So there's what I've learned, because most people are going into it as a box owner, is like, I like exercise. I'm young. Here's an accessible thing to get into. I'm going to go just work out and like teach people. Like, it's a common misconception. And then as I grew into my own space with this, I'm like, wait, like we have to find a niche within this market, because we're not actually, and I think Khalip has talked about a lot of times, like you're not competing against other CrossFits. You're competing against the health and wellness industry. And again, if you take that bigger macro view of this thing, what do 90% of the clientele out there need? They need weight loss. So as I started to see people have conflicting ideas of how to get there, I mean, Jason knows this about me. Like after I disaffiliated, I was just pissed more than anything. But I was like, okay, some of the final straws was like, I had a client come up to me after I pulled kipping pull-ups from our programming, because specifically this one person like was doing kipping pull-ups and I thought they were going to rip their shoulder out. I did that, and you would have thought like I took people's firstborn from them. It was insane. And it was not understanding, like there's this power of this bigger that's saying this is important, right? Barbells are important, whatever. When I saw them switch to dumbbells a couple of years of the games, I was like, that's a brilliant move, because most people are so married to the barbell in terms of getting people fit. Like they don't think about anything outside of that, right? So for me, when I was starting to see the majority of my demo was families and people that had not worked out in 10, 15, 20 years, the last thing they need is a barbell on their back. as much as anybody could argue that, they haven't even earned the right to do a proper air squat. Why are you giving them a barbell? But when you're playing against this crowd mentality of like, this is CrossFit and that's that CrossFit and this is the thing, and there, you know, I was frustrated for one, but the final tilting point was like, I started just getting angry at myself. Like, I'm pointing the finger of blame at CrossFit for all these things. I'm going to fail or I'm going to win. Fuck that. I'm going to put that on my own shoulders. I'm going to fail of my own regards. And like, because I can't hide behind somebody else's shadow and be like bitching and moaning and like not take responsibility for my own actions. What's going on in my space is my thing. And yeah, so I was like, I'm not going to sell CrossFit anymore. Do I still use functional movement? Do I have other things? Sure. But what this now leads into, that I think many people have no concept of what's going to happen next, is you're about to run into a massive identity crisis. It's like you literally somebody turning 40 and be like, where the hell am I at my life now? I just had a kid. Who am I now?
I've been there. Just turned 40. But can I go back to something you said, and then I'll let you speak, Todd, because it's probably in the same vein. Earlier you said, you know, does Glassman want credit or money? And I kind of feel like that's like a musician. Most musicians will tell you, I do it for the love of music. But if I take the same 3 chords and play them in the same, you know, tempo and call it a different song, they're going to sue me, even though they wrote that song because they love music. So it's kind of the same principle. Glassman certainly did this because of passion. He wanted to change the world, but that doesn't give just anybody the right to use it. Let's let Todd speak, and then
but
go ahead, Caleb. Yep.
The word to use, no, the difference was that did he want impact or did he want credit? 2 very different things. Because
but I think musicians.
Well, and yeah, I can't speak for him. It seems like he's appreciates both. He wants impact and credit for it.
Yeah, I don't think he's upset he has a house in Hawaii.
Right.
Here's the thing that I struggle with, and that what I've seen in the community is that people will complain about their members coming in and thinking that CrossFit is just the games, and like when something new comes out at the games, they need to buy them. But then, as you guys just admitted, you guys were the ones that were facilitating that idea. Like, these blocks showed up at the games, we got to buy these blocks. This kipping pull has to happen, we got to do that. So I think the disconnect is the fact that, like, you said eventually that, hey, I don't want to hide behind the shield of CrossFit and let everybody just do CrossFit. I want to create my own brand and identity. And then, you know, then I'm the one that holds that. I feel that I've been able to maintain that identity even through still being affiliated with CrossFit, because people's true understanding of CrossFit is exactly what I give them and show them. And so when they walk in the door, if all I care about and my other coaches or owners care about is the CrossFit games and how fast I do the workout, and that I'm never going to scale it, and that we need all the equipment that I saw the Rogue do, guess what my members are going to do? And then that guy that, you know, shouldn't be doing kipping pull-ups is going to be like, well, everybody else wants to do it RX and they think that that's it. And because I've set that example. Whereas if you take the different approach of this thing, that it's like, no, the CrossFit games is like watching the NFL. You guys are here, we're playing flag football. I'm going to teach you how to do that. It's like, I feel like I've seen a number of affiliates that have been able to do that. I feel like we've done a fairly decent job at that, to where that argument of the CrossFit games causing everybody to think that that is CrossFit is not the case, because what people think CrossFit is in my gym is what I've showed them CrossFit to be. So I now have created my own version of CrossFit and my own brand, but I'm also still associated with the bigger brand. And I don't think there's any misconception in that. I haven't felt that. And so in my opinion, you can do both things. You can have your own brand. You can still be associated with CrossFit. And, you know, you can take the good that comes along with it, and you can shield the bad by having your own distinct brand, whether that brand is CrossFit Rife like Vern has, or whether it's Drive Fitness like I have. You've still now created your own unique brand, and the people that it impacts, which are the ones that are walking in and out of your door on a daily basis, see and understand the difference between your brand and the headquarters brand potentially. So that just kind of is what struck me as I listened to you there. It's tough to think that it's CrossFit's fault for the way that you guys approach CrossFit in your gym.
I agree with. I can understand where you're saying that. That makes a lot. Absolutely, we perpetuated our own fault and our own problem within that. Ironically, over the past year, like I genuinely was considering re-affiliating because I liked the direction that CrossFit was going in terms of the CrossFit for Health. I think the secondary piece is when you're paying for an affiliation. This is the difference that Jay just actually posted in his video. He just made up, like, there's a difference between a franchise and affiliate, right?
Yep.
To me, when I was spending the money, I was like, I'm spending this money for marketing, right? Because now I can put the name there and I get a brand association. This is going to get me a hookup somewhere else. Okay, marketing, but that's my marketing expense. And as far as marketing goes, like $3,000 a year is nothing. Like, that's a drop in the bucket. We all know this at this point. When I didn't find that if my general marketing was not bringing me the general client that I was wanting in return, that just seemed like it didn't make, as a business, doesn't make sense. The secondary piece I hear within that is that you've also set yourself up to be able to walk away from CrossFit at any point because you have your own brand. And Jay and I talked about this the other day, like, what was it, 10 years ago, however long ago, there's the black box thing where there's a bunch of fallout stuff with that, where more or less the discussion came around, like, you should set yourself up to be able to just operate as your own business, because at any point, if you can't make an existential flex, right? If you ever want to look at like Infinite Game from Simon Sinek, like, an existential flex comes from, like, do you at your core values disagree with the direction of this other governing body, which by virtue of just putting your name with that, you're associating with, in my opinion, everything that comes along with it, right? Like, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Like, you're kind of going that path. And having been the person who's made a distinct shift and like cut that from that, I can say, like, now, like, okay, these are my values, these are my things, this is how it operates when it comes into my business. Do I disagree that, again, for a long time, much of my general values overlapped so much so, but I also wasn't super clear on what I valued in general. So I think if you, again, yours might completely 1,000% line up. I'm not going to disagree with that at all. And could it both coexist? Absolutely. One of my best friends owns Northeast CrossFit, and he has like great box. Awesome. I support him to the nines. Like, he crushes it. And I'm like, dude, but on the flip side, if you're going to look at like what, now that where people are moving into this new space, if they are going to disaffiliate, because at the end of the day, like, the biggest discussion comes down to, like, so you made a decision, you disaffiliated or you're staying affiliated. What comes with that? Like, people are going to, whether it's $3,000 or $100,000, people are going to say, what's my money going towards? If I had only these 3,000 or 5,000, I don't even know what the affiliate fee is nowadays. I have only this amount of monies to go towards moving my vision of my business forward, not my gym, not my CrossFit, my business, my livelihood that's paying for my personal self, my vision of like health and happiness and my family and all that other jazz. What am I going to put it towards? And I think right now in this place in history, people are asking themselves, where do my values lie? And that's the only thing that's brought to light. The problem that's going to come for anybody who does disaffiliate, and this was me, I had to ask myself that very question. Like, I know how to pitch high intensity functional movements, constantly varied, the whole rampant. I sold it for years before that. And then I had to ask myself the question, like, because I'm not going to look myself in the mirror and say, like, I'm just going to use the same thing and just say, like, it's the same thing, because it's not. Like, and anybody who does that, I agree, like, from an ethical level, and everybody's going to have their sliding scale of ethics. For me, I could not do it. And for me, from a personal experience, people are going to have a very difficult time describing what the hell they're doing, because they were selling fitness. And the beautiful thing about CrossFit is we pitched fitness as like, it's a score and it's a game, but like, to do what? And what is goal setting? But we set the goals, we set the parameters. Well, I don't know if you guys have ever looked into cognitive behavioral therapy, like, somebody's walking in as a client, and I tell my clients all the time, like, my goal is to put myself out of a job. If that's the goal, they need to lead the conversation from day one. They are telling me what the goal is. They're telling me, and 90% of people are going to say, hey, my goal is to lose weight. So now you're no longer in the fitness industry, you're in the weight loss industry. And that's a different game, right? You're selling against Arbonne, you're selling against P90X, you're selling directly to that, where they have a method and a rhyme and a reason to get you to lose weight. CrossFit is to get you to get fit. Well, fit for what, right? Now you have to redefine all those things. Can it be done under CrossFit? Absolutely. And CrossFit's clearly shown to be able to do that, right? And it's kept the community alive along those things. But for people who are going to disaffiliate, I'm saying that like, as you know, people are hyped and they're doing their thing. F that, like you're about to you're really good about like the ethical and moral decision you made, but now you're going to have a very new conversation and like the shit moment, and it's not going to come like a month or 2 months, 3 months down the line. Like you're moving into a place right now in the world where reopening a business under COVID duress, your business is going to look different. You can't program the same way. You can't run your operations the same way. You have to restructure your business, and now you're going to restructure your identity at the same time.
Well, I think let's let Fern chime in as well, but I think I think there's the argument of if you're de-affiliating, what should you be doing? And then there's the whole completely other topic of how do you create the identity and branding.
But
right?
I mean, it's right, but they're relevant. They go together.
They
You
do
can't
go
talk about
together,
them independently of each other. Like if
I'm just saying,
that doesn't work.
But my point is, until we get through the argument of if you de-affiliate, what should you be doing as far as your programming? We can't really talk about the brand identity.
At the end of the day, it's exercise, man. Like,
but is it? I guess that's the argument, though, too. Then, right, Caleb? Like,
the question I don't think your programming probably isn't going to change very much, is what I'm going to assume. It's how you communicate, CrossFit. Right? But it's the issue is how you communicate it, right? So, what are you going to tell people you're giving them? I think Caleb made a good point with that. How's it going to be worded on your website? How are you going to post about it? What are the terms that you are going to use, and how are you going to describe that, and how do people know what they're going to be getting from you?
So Caleb, if somebody walked into your box, when you're now virtual,
yeah,
right? So, but when you were open, you had a brick and mortar, and someone walked in and said, "Hey, I'm interested." First, let me ask you this: how often did someone come in and say they were interested in CrossFit?
Never.
Really? Once you changed to Purebred Athletics?
People said, "Hey, I heard that you can do some of this stuff." I'm like, "Yeah," but like even before we disaffiliated, the number one thing people walked in for is like, "I want to lose weight."
Well, and you created that culture, so kudos to you. You're so okay. Well, then how did you describe what you were doing without using the word CrossFit?
In the beginning, I'm going to teach you how to move properly. Here's this course I have. It's called Foundations, and that's the truth. Like it's the foundations of movement, and this is how this is what, like, you need to be able to do this anyway, then that was it. That was mostly it.
Well, if you could sell that easily,
short and sweet to the point.
Vern's gonna hire you.
I mean, not for nothing, that's kind of what I did at Albany. I just happened to use
No, you took your shirt off a lot and flirted with the women, for the record, at Albany.
No wonder you guys had a falling out.
Yep,
I got pissed about that.
Yeah,
he had a better six-pack.
There can only be one shirtless man in this agreement.
But that's just cool. Like, again, people want to like make fun of the shticky stuff on like the internet and this and that and everything. Like, once you realize most things are just marketing, so people with the 4-second attention span will turn their head and go, "Oh, I'm going to listen now." Like, okay, whatever, But again, I don't know how many times, Jay, you actually sat and listened to me talk to people. Like, you're just asking people questions about what the hell do they want, and it's never, "I want a better clean and jerk." It's
never. No.
Right? And like, no matter what you're selling, that's it. And I think that if CrossFit wants to hold on to, this is just personal opinions. If they want to hold on to the reins and like bleed people dry for anybody who ever uses the word CrossFit, or they could go into it and say, "Wow, everybody knows the word CrossFit. Everybody knows it. Awesome. I have a new opportunity," right? If you want to keep looking at the past and just be like, "We're going to try to cling to every bit of control there," cool. You're probably going to run into more of these types of situations that you're in right now. That's my personal opinion. But when you look at like anything, and I've been somebody who's been under subject of duress of people telling me like, this is how it's going to be, and I'm always going to cling to control. And don't get me wrong, I'd also turned around and was that same asshole myself in plenty of times in business too. There is this point right now where if they want to be all that in a bag of chips, it means you have to tighten up the system. If you want to, because otherwise you're paying, like, people are paying you to use a name, which is paying to have brand association, which is paying for marketing. It's sexy. CrossFit's a sexy name. It's a damn good name. it's attractive and it solves a lot of like confusion really fast. Like, I'm going to do a lot and I'm going to get fit. Cool. It's to the point.
I mean, as you said that, it made me pause. Not gonna lie. I mean, there would be a greater impact on the world through CrossFit, but at the same time, we have to acknowledge it's a business.
Sure. But there's a new way for them to, clearly they have to restructure their business anyway, because that's what they're doing.
But
right?
how would they make money if they just said anyone can use this name?
Easy. Like, it's a system. That's it. And
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
what?
it's the training. It's the training department.
if that's your method,
But you would get a lot more people at seminars, is what you're saying.
exactly.
Essentially.
Musicians make nothing on this. Like, think of like the Grateful Dead. Okay, they let people.
They made their money on the road, yes.
Well,
You know-
so yeah, so I agree with you, Caleb, in a lot of this, but I do think there has to be some sort of line in the sand with regard to protecting myself from liability. If anybody can just slap that on there and use that, so like let's say I don't make somebody pay for that, like I'm now opening the larger corporation up into a significant amount of liability because I didn't license that, right? So like I get what you're saying, but at the same time, there's probably some spot in the middle, which is like I have to protect the brand because there are idiots in the world who are going to do something malicious or stupid or something like that. So if you're going to use it, again, I think most people would understand it better if you're just like, it's a license to use the name. I don't necessarily know that it's marketing. Marketing comes along with that because it is a worldwide recognized brand. Like just by association, it's like free marketing. But it's more of a licensing fee with regard to using that and to use the methodology, right? So I look at it that way. The other thing that when you were talking earlier that I thought was interesting was the ability to flex. Well, I mean, like him or not, he gave everybody the absolute ability to flex, which is use CrossFit in the name or don't, but you still need to pay the affiliation fee, right? If you're going to use the methodology. So you're not pigeonholed into one or the other. Like you can
That's a
make
good
it
point.
to purebred. You can make it purebred athletics and it never had to say CrossFit in the name. Or you could say CrossFit Rife and I can just, live my life and we could both win. And I think people are, while they like to bitch about the affiliation fee, really overlook the convenience that was provided to them. Because if I go open a Fit Body Boot Camp or an Orange Theory, I get told literally everything, and they're probably going to take something to the tune of 50% off my margin. Now, they're going to put some systems in place that's probably going to help propel the business a little bit more, but I'm still going to forfeit 50%, maybe 25% for the second location. So I think a lot of people have just overlooked it. Like he gave supreme flexibility to do basically whatever the hell you want.
I agree with that 1,000%. But again, this comes back to a very simple conversation of what are you optimizing for? Did you optimize for freedom and your ability to do whatever you want, or do you optimize for profit, right? And like, if you want one or the other, and who's to say what impact is, right? Fit Body Boot Camp or Burns or Orange Theories, like not for nothing, they're changing people's lives. Whether we
100%. But what I'm saying is that he put that back on the affiliate. He's like, I'm doing, and I asked Coach Glassman, he was like, we're not in the business game. They're in the training game, right? Like their bread and butter has always been the seminar. He's like, that is what we do. We train trainers. That has always been his very overt direction for the company with regard to like what we do.
Yeah.
With that kind of like going on there. And what he did was just like, impact, like I get to decide what impact is on my business, just like you do with that. And again, I just think it's worth noting that like that's on the business. That's not on CrossFit with regard to like your brick and mortar or your virtual brand, whatever that might be.
Well, the backside to that though is like if nobody's responsible, then if everybody's responsible, then nobody's responsible, right? And that's like everybody's pointing like this when a problem happens. It's not my fault, it's your fault, it's their fault, it's everybody's fault, right? And
yeah, I mean that's the downside of like a true libertarian for sure.
1,000%, right? So like if we want individual responsibility, doesn't it mean to truly build your own brand? And again, if you wanted to associate with CrossFit, cool. And for the record, I actually tried to initially make my CrossFit name Purebred Athletics. They wouldn't let me do it. So I had Purebred CrossFit and Purebred Athletics. So there was not that opportunity. And hindsight 20.
You could have kept Purebred CrossFit, kept a website, never pushed people to it.
Exactly. So
paying
you
$3,000.
can do that. Like I know a lot of people that do that, that have an affiliate that is nowhere listed on their website, but now they've basically just licensed to use the methodology and the name.
So
And
they
some people
know
will be
that
like, well,
CrossFit
then
will never come after them.
exactly, which is fair, quite frankly, because if they're training CrossFit in there, but they're afraid people are afraid of CrossFit, well then,
But
like,
now
we're
you're
not going
going
to
to get
argue
hit with
that.
the whole, I don't want to give money to Coach Glassman. That's going to be one of the arguments to that.
Listen,
Get over it. People are still going to buy Domino or Papa John's pizza, like
I don't
whatever.
know. Do you like Papa John's a lot? Because you bring it up all the time.
I like pizza, and it's very relevant in this scenario.
Well, and you saw my reference. I mean, I won't even go off topic. I sent you that text earlier where I mentioned people that have effed up and people still support them. But go ahead.
I still think like you're again, you're trying to take from all the piggy banks right now, and that's fine. Like I personally believe, and I was telling Jay before we hopped on here, I think and again, I've been wrong many times in business, so take it for everything I say with a grain of salt.
Yeah, you went into business with me. That was your first mistake.
And here I am thinking about doing it again, right? Good, right? But personally, they're like CrossFit is how many years into like being on the big scene right now? Like it's in a new stage in business and it might need to change, and that's okay. Like business structure can change. Who's to say you can't change it back if it serves a better thing? Like what do they want right now? If they want impact, if they want to keep the damn thing alive, like everybody's freaking out. Like, is CrossFit going to go under? Like that's like, I've heard more people, and I'm not even an affiliate, right? And okay, so what do you need to keep it going? Maybe you need more structure. Maybe you need more rules and like one of my biggest problems is like I had this, Jay, I remember we pushed for a long time where I was like, I want a 1 month at least onboarding process.
Right? We did it. We did it.
We fought tooth and nail over, but we got finally there. But like most places is just coming off the street, man. Like, and having the background that I personally have in, more the mobility, the rehab, all those other things, like I had a real problem when I knew somebody else down the road was not going to say something about Rhabdo or whatever. And, thank God we've dodged some bullets on certain things. Again, is the ultimate onus and responsibility on me to actually make sure somebody's having a safe experience? And is it on me to make sure my business stands on its own 2 feet? Absolutely. Like I agree with that more than anything else.
So then why is that not just the stance? Like if that's what we're saying, then I struggle sometimes to come back and be like that we just literally all acknowledged it, but we're just like, but we should do it a different way.
Oh no, my stance is with you there, but like just do your own thing. Like if that's what you're going to do anyway, again, if you're going to pay for marketing that might not, and again, that's my opinion that it's marketing. I'm paying for a marketing expense for a brand awareness with that. If that's for me, what I'm using that money for, when I don't have like my clients now, I start them with just walking, right? Like I don't need to make them do constantly varied anything. I need them to be consistent more than I need them to be constantly varied. That's a very different ball of wax, right? I made that shift when I decided I'm going to first make this about my client's problem, not the thing I like. And that was the existential flex that I made. And I changed my entire system around that. And I've coached a lot of friggin' people. Like we had many, many people at Albany, and I put most of them through our intro programs, and I've done a good job and a bad job on some of those things. That's where I would go with it personally. And to me, if you're going to put in all that work to build your onboarding process, which to me is the most important part of any of this, because that's how you're going to like basically set the tone for any of your clients forever, because most of them don't have their ankles. If that's what you're going to do, there's potentially any circumstance of doubt of where I'm putting my money as a business, especially right now when I'm mitigating risk. Most people are not trying to maximize outcome right now. They're minimizing their risk as much as possible. And if there's a shadow of a doubt where I'm putting any of my money that it might kick my business in the ass when there's so much change and turmoil and like question in the world, now we're asking that, right? Like people are going to look at the money they're spending through a different lens right now. That's all I'm coming at it from. And if I'm going to take all the risk anyway as a business owner, I want to have as few moving parts as possible. If I don't know somebody's going to post something in a social media post that I don't potentially agree with, and that might affect my business, you're damn right. I'm going to eliminate that thing from my life. But on the flip side, if I'm not going to associate with that and they put something out there that like that could have boomed my business, that's also my loss. I'm from a personal standpoint, where if I'm going to do it, I'm going to like take it on the chin. It's going to be my problem, and it's going to be my success there too. Whether I'm personally maximizing for impact or I'm personally maximizing for credit. Two very, very different things. And again, the question where I actually come into all of this is like, hey guys, so you decided to disaffiliate. Who the hell are you now? And my argument to those people is and I agree with both of you actually on this stance. Like, no, you're not a CrossFit anymore, but you better redefine what problem you're solving. You're not solving Forging Elite Fitness. Get that through your head. Like, that's not what you're solving. And you're going to have to restructure over time your business, because people, not right now, there's going to be a rally cry because you made a bold stance. And I commend people for that too. Over the next 3 to 5 months, there's going to be a subtle change when you don't have CrossFit in your name and you don't get to leverage that and you don't have that. The clients that are going to show up your door are going to either just be word of mouth, which is whatever. And they'll be like, wow, why do you go there? Oh man, you look great. It's because somebody's going to look at me like, man, you look better naked. That's going to be the comment people are going to say. So that's weight loss. The flip side, the other thing that people have to decide is, are you a strength and conditioning facility, which is also a different specialty. People are now going to be forced, in my opinion, to have to make a very definitive decision on where do they stand on this thing. They can no longer, in my opinion, like a fringe thing, like, because if you're trying to serve both masters, you're going to do both of them kind of not really the best. So just be really good at one thing, be an expert. And then if later on, once you've proven that system super awesome, then bolster the next thing, right? CrossFit won that argument because they built a game and a sport around fitness. And that's awesome. Like, they used something really smart, which is human psychology. People like to win. People want points. People want to get acknowledgement, and they put it there at the top. Cool. But from that, now they led it to this point. It's just a new decision. And the whole, again, me coming into this is everybody who thinks it's just going to be, oh, we're just doing the same thing, but it's just different now. That's not going to work. In the next 3 to 6 months, you better start asking yourself a very hard question of, who do you serve and why do you serve it? And no, you can't use the CrossFit name. So if you feel okay ethically just saying I'm doing the same thing and I'm just using the same old methodology, well, you clearly didn't address the initial problem of, like, you're doing it for you and you're not doing for the people that you serve. And I think that could be literally like tens of thousands of hours of conversation, in which Jay and I have delved into lately. But that's where people who reacted emotionally and didn't take a beat to go, I'm about to make a very big decision right now. I did not like remove my affiliation overnight. It took probably a year for me to have some less than favorable decisions. And I hemmed and hawed with my current business partner about this. He asked me, he never pushed me, asked me the questions. Hey man, we're spending this money together. What's it going to? And I had to ask myself over and over again, and sheer loyalty, pure bottom line loyalty, like, this thing, and this is my master, and this is my person who took me to the top, Greg Glassman. As I don't get like starstruck very often, but like the 2 times I met the guy, I was actually speechless, right? Like, that doesn't happen very often with me. In fact, it like never does. I've met plenty of celebrities. And
First time you met me.
Yeah.
I was the gummy bear belt that you're wearing with your cargo shorts. I was like, oh God, here we go.
That was a Grateful Dead belt.
That's the thing. Like, that's where people have to ask themselves, like, where are they going now? And I probably would agree with both of you. I think people are being fairly fraudulent. They're just going to say, I'm just going to do CrossFit. It's all the same thing, right? Well, if you really ask yourself, like, how many people are programming for the gym 3 days on, 1 day off? Nobody, right? Why? Because people want to have the gym open 7 days a week. 90% of people, right? So that right there, you've already deviated from the methodology, right? One change.
Yes and
Not
no.
necessarily. Yes and
yeah.
no. No, that's not
was going to
necessarily
say
true.
the same thing I said, because it's really up to the athletes. It's running a
Well,
business.
But
life dictates that, right?
But look at that. We just went like this, right? It wasn't my fault this time. Oh, now it's the client's fault, right?
I think that's because I think anybody who truly understands what he's describing in that 3-on-1 off, understand that it's not because they've done 3-on-1 off and they've done 3-on-1 off, 2-on-1 off. And the point isn't like, this is the set in stone template. The point is, people can only sustain so much high intensity in there. In order to illustrate that to you, this is how we're going to program. And that should be communicated to your clients. We're like, if I see you 8 days in a row, maybe I shouldn't. But
Yeah,
I can
I mean,
also go ahead.
We can just come
well, I
back.
was just say, let me just say, you could take that to the next level of like the strength metcon debate that we've touched many times, where like,
Yeah.
but then again, like Fern just said, if you go back to February 10th, 2001, the first time CrossFit program to workout, there's plenty of double days, there's plenty of triple days, there's plenty of EMOMs, there's plenty of everything. So just because currently it's one workout a day, which we stand by, most people need just that, doesn't, kind of like what you said it really well. Like, just because it's not CrossFit, is it not CrossFit? I don't know.
But that's the nature of the problem. It can be, and again, those on the other side, and don't get me wrong, like I get it. From how many of these certs have I taken, Jay? Like pretty much every last one of them, right?
Yeah, I mean, you and I hit all of them back in the day.
I can argue with the amount of times I looked at my clients when they tried to tell me something wasn't CrossFit, and I'm like, you have literally not a clue in your mind, not even a little bit, right? Like I programmed thrusters and snatches, and they said that wasn't CrossFit enough. I look and be like, are you out of your mind, right? If anybody wanted to like say something along those lines. But again, because there is that much flexibility and vagueness out there, and that is the consequence of the setup, right? If we want to like, and everybody's wanting to point about like, we need better leadership. Okay, well, this was all set up from one thing. Cool. And that's part of the decision, right? If everybody's wanting some type of structure, like somebody's gonna have to make the decision about what structure is, right? And what's the onboarding process and what's the thing. And it's gonna have to look somewhat uniform. That's the nature of the beast. Like why do regulations happen, right? Otherwise it would be pure anarchy. It eventually happens at some maturation point of every business.
So I think there's a discussion to be had here because we're quasi all saying the same thing, right? And we might be talking past the points that are important, which is what does affiliation mean, right? So you're like, hey, $3,000, and I'm like, okay, what do I get for my $3,000? You get your name on the board, right? Okay, cool, check. Worth $3,000. I mean, if we're talking about a marketing expense, anybody who's been in the game long enough understands it. Look, pennies. I know people that spend 3 times that in 1 month in the CrossFit space. The flip side of that is, what is if you want more, if you want systems, right? So let's dive down that hole. Like if you want an onboarding program, then my question is, let's figure out like, okay, in a different world, what would be the perfect affiliation where I get whatever it is that I've decided that I need from that? Well, cool. I'm going to guess that it doesn't cost $3,000 anymore. Right. So then what are people willing to pay for all these things that they want? And my guess is probably not what it actually costs, going back to like the cost of franchising, which people don't understand. Otherwise, most of them wouldn't be having this conversation. And that's, again, going back to a little bit of self-accountability. If $3,000 is going to put you over, and for the record, I've been that guy, and my business is like, fuck, this is going to crush me right now. It's got jack to do with CrossFit. Your business sucks.
Agreed.
So again, it's got nothing to do with that, right? And what I think is happening now is there's a knee-jerk reaction, and there's a couple things that have lined up here that I think are worth acknowledging. Everybody's been cooped up with their house. We've been practicing being divided, be like, I think we should open. I think we should close. I think this was a racial issue. I think it was a stupidity issue, whatever. And then this happens, and now people have been basically let out of the box practicing blaming somebody else for something that's going on for 4 consecutive months nonstop. So now they're just like, this is your fault. This is the reason I'm here. When affiliates have just been getting kicked in the balls for 4 months and coming to the realization that what they've been building is actually not that strong. It's not resilient from the stance of a business. I couldn't sustain 2 months of having my business blown up. Right. So it's like, okay, what do you want that affiliation to look like? And I think it's a worthwhile question, quite frankly, that HQ should ask. If you guys want more, what would you be willing to pay for it? Because shit ain't free. Right. Like your client, you don't give more services to your clients for free.
Oh, absolutely. I'm in 1,000.
Right. So again, I think there's some pretty candid conversations that need to be had that people are not willing to have. They're like, well, no, I just think I should get way more for my $3,000. And I'm like, in what world? In what world is that a thing? It's not. It's foolish. And I agree with you that, again, rebranding is rebranding, or de-affiliate is and I think I said it the other day, the speed at which with people did it was the problem. You put no forethought into it. You're just like, I'm out, I'm de-affiliating. And they're not asking the question that you brought up, Caleb, which is, what does that mean? Who am I going to be now? And how am I going to explain this? Because now I've created confusion. If people come in there and they see it and they're like, wait, this is not a CrossFit gym? Well, that sure as shit looks like CrossFit. So now I'm confused. Like, are you full of shit? Like, what's going on here? So there's a lot of things to unpack here with that. It's a lot.
You hit the nail on the head, man. Like, especially that, and I'm going to agree with you. If 1,000%, it should be a hell of a lot more, but like, you get more for more, and it will fast track your business. But it does mean taking responsibility. Like, let's take all the best business practices and let's have some predictability around it, which is like kind of the opposite of the black box method, right? Like, put something in, you don't really know what happens in the middle, and like something comes out on the other side. Like, no, like, how about we just quantify exactly what happens in the middle of great business practices, from onboarding a client, from all these things. Because, and again, the first dip in the, like, I personally think $1,000 for a weekend certification is a drop in the bucket to begin with. But like, most people look at that like that's a massive expense. That's a pretty big onboarding piece right there. So you're actually getting a pretty big commitment from somebody who wants to learn the methodology in general. Right? Cool. Like, you can go teach CrossFit now. You went and did the thing. But like, that's kind of the access point right now. And you're absolutely right. Right. And especially, one of the few people that I really think positioned themselves well before this is like NC Fit, right? Khalipa didn't need CrossFit before that. Dude ran a sharp business. Like, I've listened to all his stuff, and like, just because he's a good businessman, he'd set himself up when this moment, if he didn't agree with something like this, he's not putting his business at risk. He's not putting his clients that he's in charge of at risk. He can still take care of them in a great place. And yeah, I think, again, just to reiterate what you said, I think a lot of people made an emotional decision, and I think all of us would probably agree. I know I've made some very emotional decisions in business, and I look back and go, shit, that wasn't smart. So like,
well, there's also stuff that I think is, again, with the NC Fits of the world, and I'm not super in tune with a lot of what they're doing, but I think they're consolidating physical spaces. I think, because a lot of what their revenue is coming in from that branding with regard to like programming and all that stuff.
I'm pretty sure they've closed down a few spots. Yes.
Okay. So that, I'm not entirely sure, is an appropriate model for somebody to model themselves off of, because it's not the same. I'm talking about a virtual company that's doing B2B, who is now selling themselves as the quintessential B2C business. And I'm not hating on him, by the way, like, that's good. But what I'm saying is, those are not the same.
Same
like
with
that's a B2C. That is a B2C entity that is largely, and if I'm going to take a guess, is largely being fueled by B2B revenue. So it's actually not real in the sense that I'm like, this is how you should structure your business and you'll be able to recreate this. Again, I'm not hating on him, but not everybody's going to be able to create NC Fit, because a lot of what he's selling is B2B.
I wasn't pitching it from that sense. It was more, set up a business that was resilient to inevitability. Like, whether it was this statement, whether it was COVID, whether it was anything, like, economic strife is going to hit your business.
Yeah, but my point is, I agree with you. I'm not saying you were saying that. I'm saying is, I'm not entirely sure that the B2C brick and mortar was resilient. Like, we'd have to pop the hood on that thing and say, if he didn't have NC Fit having all this other B2B revenue, would he be in the same fucking position as everybody else? Like, we don't know. And it's good for him that he's not. I just get really worried when these businesses, who are looked at as the quintessential, you should do this, are largely backed by other sources of revenue based on brand awareness, right? Like, he's Jason Khalipa. And this has always been my contention, is I'm super happy for him. If people crush it, that is amazing. But I don't know that I'm going to, structure how I go about playing basketball because Michael Jordan had a shoe. Like, I'm not Michael Jordan. And most gyms are not Jason Khalipa, and they're not Ben Bergeron. So I think it's just a little bit of awareness of really looking at, okay, what do they have going on in that facility? And I can't do that. So chop, 40% off of it. That's actually what I'm dealing with, not the larger NC Fit brand, because that's not what I do. So
just so you know, Caleb, Furnace to tell everybody he played Division I basketball.
You fucking have to
Every
tell everybody I
episode.
play basketball. But yeah, so I did want to clarify. I'm not saying you're saying that, but I'm saying that in my personal opinion, that's a quasi. It's a bit of a pitfall for some people, because that's worth noting.
Oh yeah, I'm in agreement 100% with you. I only use his platform as saying like he looked beyond just the typical
Agreed.
the box, right?
Agreed. And that's why I'm saying I'm not hating on him for that. But if we're going to use that as like, this is what you should do in your gym,
Yeah.
maybe not. Like I do think there's a quasi question mark there.
Can I say the same thing about Bergeron? It's the same thing Fern said. Like, everybody looks at Bergeron as the best. It's like, is he a good programmer? For games athletes? Sure. I don't know that his programming is any better than Drive Fitness. In fact, I don't think it is. Like, Drive Fitness, best programming out there, right, Todd? So, and then they model their affiliate after him. It's like, you don't know how, CrossFit New England, or I'm sorry, Community Fitness New England is these days. You just know that his programming for games athletes are good.
Yeah, and don't be fooled that CompTrain ain't pulling in some decent cash, right? So like, again, that's one more factor to throw on there. It's just like, if I'm going to do all of these things, well, I mean, whatever, let's just say it's 40 and 40 for monthly of 80 revenue. Well, I don't get the additional 40 because I don't do thousands of people online programming, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not my game. So I would like to see some of the affiliates that are just standalones, like the David Osorios of the world, who are crushing it.
One of the best out there.
And most people don't know who he is and should.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have any of these extraneous factors that make him somebody that everybody else seeks out, right? Like, those are just his clients. That's it. The end.
Yeah. To that effect, I would argue that you're going to see a massive shift to high increases in price, because to be able, I live in New York, right? What's it, 10 people in a room and stuff like that? Like, you're going to have to go purely to almost like a semi-private model, in my opinion, if you're going to do in person, or you're going to have to leverage a virtual space. And most people have not set that up. And I've been setting that up. Like, it took about a year because I had to break some personal beliefs that you could actually get results that way for people. And again, this is a longer term conversation. I agree with you where the box model might not be the thing anymore, at least not in the way it is right now. And you're going to see a lot of things change. I think you're going to see what it looks like to be inside of an affiliate change. And again, if you're going to ask somebody to pay X amount of money for this change in time, is it helping to set you up for your business? Because at the end of the day, like, you got to keep your lights on, right? And that's a hard question to ask anybody. That's just a question I'm begging for anybody. Like, I got something different out of it than anybody else, right? Like, what is Jay is a very different person to me than to his both of you. Like, he's a very different figure of life circumstances, as is like any other business thing. CrossFit's a very different thing to me. It changed my life in different ways. It might change your life in different ways. So as things are changing now, which is not a bad thing, like, it's just a different thing. What are people going to get out of it? So again, I probably should first ask, like, again, then this might go longer conversation. What are you guys most afraid of as this is happening? Because you are still both affiliates, right?
Yeah.
Owning a business in general is a little sketchy right now, but like, what are you guys both afraid of in terms of of staying or not staying with it? I'm assuming both of you are staying based off of our conversation so far.
I'm personally not afraid of anything with regard to that. And I don't say that, oh, look at me. Like, I'm just not. Like, I think Todd's probably going to say the same thing where we have invested a ton of time in making sure that the connections we have inside the building are personal. They are with me, not with CrossFit. So I'm not worried about that at all. As a matter of fact, business is fucking great currently in the space. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat as far as that's concerned. It's like we've been around for 9 years and have created a brand that is not just simply CrossFit. So in my area, it's like they know who we are and what we do, and I don't see that changing. Definitely not with the people that are inside the walls of our gym currently. Might that impact if I do have a concern, is like, what's it going to do to the potential consumer going forward, will this radiate out enough to cause some issues to where somebody that's either just heard about CrossFit or will hear about CrossFit, will that be what's associated with it? Or will it be the same thing, which is what people know for the most part of now is like, hey, this is a program that gets results. Like you made mention of people calling you up to start at your gym and nobody says, I want a 2-minute Fran time or I want a heavier clean and jerk. They'll call you and say, hey, I want to lose some weight, or I'm looking to get fitter or like tone up or whatever it is. And typically it's followed by, I hear CrossFit's a good way to do that. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm either out of shape or I've never done this before. How do you guys take care of me? And that's the easy sell. Come in the door and let me show you how we'll take care of you. And it's not a big deal. So if somebody's not willing to make that call because they are afraid that CrossFit as a brand represents something else, that's a potential risk. But I'm optimistic to think that because the fitness side of the program is so strong, people will still understand and hear the words that CrossFit gets you fit. This is a place to start there.
Other thing that happened, what I heard in both of you saying that, is that you both come from a different place of stability. You guys know what you provide, meaning what's the result. You just happen to use that to get that, right? But if you needed to change that, you guys are already secure on that, right? And we'll call it CrossFit, but again, right, Fern, you just said it, it's relationships, right? You happen to use the means of CrossFit. Other people happen to use the means of Weight Watchers. Some of the like, but I think that's the important thing to do.
Now, on that note, I would struggle if I switched methodology because I happen to be an expert in CrossFit. Now, could I shift over and do?
Come on, Todd.
For sure, compared to you, I'm a fucking genius. Yeah, I'm
That's
a genius.
That's a low bar, Fern.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I had a discussion with somebody the other day where I was like, I don't want to have a gym that's a community fitness gym. No, thanks. I don't want a boot camp. That's just not me personally. I don't want that.
Let me throw in there. The reason you and Fern are not afraid is because you, exactly what Caleb said and exactly what Fern said, because you do shit right. The people that are afraid are because they're not doing it right. They don't have the relationships, and they might get rid of the name CrossFit and, lose people because they're not attached to Todd. They're not attached to Fern.
Well, and I'll tell you this.
People were good.
And just right now, it's like you ask what you get from CrossFit. I learned how to do this stuff right from CrossFit and the CrossFit community. Now, it might not have been the exact process needed, but how to treat people right and how to build a community and make sure that we're doing the right things for the right reasons for the right people. Like, that is all I have learned through CrossFit, because I wasn't always that guy to that degree, right?
Sure.
So it's like, I look at that and it's like, I've gotten a lot from this community. I've gotten a lot for what I've paid for affiliate fees. I've learned all of this stuff, and I've created a secure business because of what I've learned from CrossFit and the community. So it's like, I can't say it's like that was me and then CrossFit was just, a means to do the exercises. It's like those two things came hand in hand. That was a means to the exercise, but I learned the right way to do things through the community and through that.
Yeah, but that happens to, again, I know I have some deep biases considering my personal background, again, growing up in a cult and some other things like that, where that's no joke. It's true, but it happens to be how you learn the lessons. Now, what if things change? Do you not, say tomorrow, for whatever reason, you can't fit because CrossFit shuts down. Stop. No, right? So to me, I ask this to my wife, I ask this to my clients all the time. I set this up so if I died tomorrow, you would still be okay, right? And I think the deeper question there is, what is loyalty? Is loyalty to a brand name that, what if the brand changes? Do I have to go with everything that goes forever? And that's a hard question to ask, right? I have some deep-seated loyalty issues. Big part of the final straws with Jay and I happened to wrap around loyalty. Jay was my mentor, my best friend. I wrapped too many things in my life around Jay to solve all my problems because of whatever my own personal issues beforehand. And a part of that was with CrossFit, right? And I wrapped a lot of those things. And again, I told you already, like last year, I was thinking about coming back to CrossFit because I was coming to terms with, I probably threw the baby out with the bathwater. Probably. But doesn't change the fact that you guys happen to use this means, right? Some people use Christianity to find their enlightenment. Some people find Buddhism. Some people find nutrition. Some people find agnosticism. Some people find atheism, right? Like we're still attaching like this identity of I'm a CrossFitter. Well, I'm not that anymore. And again, if you're attaching your businesses, I am CrossFit. Well, CrossFit is an ever amalgamous changing thing, right? Where the hell did CrossFit learn it from? Look at every one of those certs, their specialties. He's taking stuff from gymnastics, from weightlifting, from everything. He borrowed it from everybody. And from that very nature, like we're all stealing from everybody at all times. And that's where I come back to the, like, did he maximize for credit or for impact? I would argue the dude maximized for impact. He will also go down for the history. And again, I'm not an affiliate. I will give him credit for like launching my career. I remember like, shit, like this thing is awesome. This gave me new purpose in college. I'm like, wow, I could be good at something again. Like I could feel like an athlete, right? I think, you know, many people have that same or similar story, but is that like the rest of your life? And I'm bringing all of this to the table because I genuinely believe there's a lot of really amazing people right now that own a business, that something changed. And my fear for all of them is that they're going to go through what I just went through. And I had pretty amazing people that somehow step up in my life to like guide me through that shit and like keep me alive as I started to figure out who the hell I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And my business reflected that. I don't know how the hell it happened, but it happened because I just gave a shit about people and wanted to help people, which at its core, both of you just told me, right? Yeah. You happen to be paying a fee, right? To me, again, I kind of get, especially when it comes to like ideologies and things like that, I clearly like it strikes a tune with me. So it's coming off a little more like my own biases. And please, again, feel free to.
Well, everybody has their own biases, dude. I mean, we're just having a conversation.
I know, but I always like to preface that because I've gone a little ape shit in my past and pissed off a lot of. Like just by the very nature of you even saying that, like I have, and I don't even know either of you. Like I've had an hour of conversation right now. And I'm like, I respect these guys just because of that openness as people are looking towards not just now, like this is just a blip in time, right? The news cycle is going to change soon. Things are going to change. Like I remember a year ago when the biggest thing was blank. 3 months ago, like the biggest thing was blank, right? Like the news cycle will change. And as people are going to set up their businesses right now and they're going to make this, like, I want to make sure that, and I think we're all in agreement on this, you need to ask yourself, what are you now? And if you are CrossFit, what does it mean to be CrossFit? And if you're not CrossFit, well, what are you? Are you a fill in the blank? And being that there is so many people, right? You just said, I don't want to be a community fitness. I don't want to be a boot camp. Well, why not? And what is boot camp? Boot camp is your own projections of whatever. Community fitness is our own projections of whatever, you know, the woman doing curves is whatever, right? Like our own.
Is curves still around in Albany?
I don't know. I haven't paid attention, but like providing a result, it just happens to be the way they're doing it. And I think the dogmas that I think where we all get really caught up in and all this shit is like, this is my ideology. It's better than your ideology. And then like all of a sudden when there's shifts that happen, we're like, yo, you can't be taking my thing and I'm paying for the thing. And the thing is like, or we all just really want to help people. What's the best practices? I'm going to pay for something out of this. And again, my opinion, I think that CrossFit would be very well suited to go to a franchise model right now and charge a fucking boatload. Personally, like CrossFit like created a massive value, massive. That's the marketing expense alone on creating something like the games and stuff like that. Insane.
It is, but I do think the counter argument to that is like, look what they built without it. And now the argument is like, no, they should do it differently. Like what I think there's a potential conversation to be had about there's some hiccups along the way because there were some, I don't know whether you want to call them like macro versus micro missteps, but I think the macro, it's hard to argue what they've achieved with that. Now, have there been like some like weird, really bad, like little sticking points along the way, but it's continued to prevail and continued to grow. And to some extent, I agree with you. Like, what am I? I think because these small micro gyms are not nationally known brands, I think that potentially could be the wrong question, not what I am. Yes, I am a CrossFit gym, but more, who am I? Because marketing or not, everybody knows that if you are not an online business, I mean, it applies there as well. Most of your clients come from your clients if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Right. So who am I? Well, I'm the person who, I'm just making this up. Like, I'm the person who gives people results because I care. Right. Like, that's not a what, that's a who. Right. And then I want to replicate those people within inside my business. And you can create a culture where, like, who are those people? Well, those are the people. I had a girl join today. She's going to drive 40 minutes across town to come here. She's like, the first time I wasn't sure. And the second time I was like, man, I really like it here. Everybody just seems like they hang out all day. That's not a what, that's a group of who's, right? Like, this is an actual culture. And I think when you start looking towards what, you start to lose the culture, which is one of the things that we preach at the level 1 and on Similar staff, is that transmission of culture. Right. And that's where I think people have largely missed the boat, is like, if it's suffering within your business, that the culture is suffering and you have a direct impact on that. So what are you doing to fix that? And on top of, with, like, you need to put systems in place and all those other things. So, we're probably splitting hairs here, but, at this point, like, the minutia matters,
Well, to me, here's would be a good thought experiment. What if tomorrow it was decided that playing tiddlywinks is now what CrossFit is, right? Are you guys both staying on board?
Or we give that in the lecture, which is, if it produces the better results, then absolutely. You're going to find me in, rollerblades wearing a hula hoop and juggling. Yeah. But the fact is, that's not going to happen. That particular scenario is not.
I get your point, though. Like, if something changes, are you still on board? And this showed us all that there is an opportunity to where something could change enough to where our choices could change. And Fern and I have both talked about that on previous episodes within this week. And that there is a point to where that happens. You're absolutely right. And we're both confident that we built a business strong enough to stand with or without it. So I do think it's a great thought experiment, though, and definitely something that everybody needs to do, not just those that are de-affiliating or any of that. It's like, you've got to make sure that you're prepared, that you can want to live with this brand or with these people, but you sure as heck better be prepared to live without them. And I think that goes to almost every aspect of your life, right?
I think at this point, sorry about that. I think at this point, we're not going in circles, but we can literally, the three of us can go, or the four of us, sorry, can go on about this forever. I think the one thing I've learned from this is people need to be open-minded and listen to other people's opinions. Like, I was really impressed, not that I was worried about it, but we're just listening and hearing other people's opinion. And there's no right or wrong in all of this. Of course, it's wrong if you're stealing, which we can get back to. We circle back to that when it comes to CrossFit. But everything, it's like this has been a phenomenal conversation. Caleb, well, let me go with Fern, Todd, and let me let you wrap it up, Caleb. Do you guys have anything else to add to it?
No, man, I think just like you said, man, I think it's been a fun, productive conversation. It's cool to hear different perspectives.
And before Fern goes, let me say, Caleb, I'm so impressed with your everything. I mean, the way you speak, the way you listen. Yes, I had a tremendous role in that, but nonetheless.
I knew there was some shameless self-plug coming in there.
If you're talking about credit or change, what's the impact? What are you looking for? Impact?
Jay's looking for credit.
Credit
every time.
But man, it was great. I was like really impressed listening to you. Makes me proud. And I'll talk to you later offline about everything. But Fern, anything you want to add?
No, I think the overall conversation, regardless of how it tastes right now, is positive, because everybody's going to start opening up their aperture with regard to the things they should be considering and improving their business. It's pretty understood, because most CrossFit affiliates haven't gone through anything with regard to economic strife until now. right? So if you survive this, you've probably earned your stripes as a true blue entrepreneur, and probably walked out of this looking at things through an entirely different lens, and in my opinion, should continue to do so. I don't think there's any bad ideas, quite frankly, with regard to all of this. I think it's how they're executed and do they work for you is the question. And right now, what bothers me, and I think is a little weird, is there are a lot of people who are just blindly grabbing onto somebody who's moving in a certain direction without actually considering, like, where the fuck are we going?
That was, I get it. Especially the emotional reactions and stuff. Like, as a business owner, you have to like find a way to cool your head, right? And we can see that right now. Like, any statement's going to be put under a microscope right now, and we need to really think about that. And one, thank you, like, for both of you just chatting with me today, because I love talking with other business owners in general. And Jay, thank you for those very kind words. We've grown a lot.
I've not improved as much as you have, Caleb.
Well,
for sure. Yeah, we can all agree there.
Plenty of therapy has helped with that, so don't trust me. Yeah, my closing thoughts is like, just to echo everything you guys both said, like, the conversations are open now. You need to start looking at yourself as like a business owner and on truly taking responsibility for your own actions. And I would caution anybody who's going to make an emotional reaction, like, take a beat, take a breath, really walk through, like, what does this mean? Not just now, but forever. Because, like, how much is really going to change in one day if you just take a breath and like really consolidate your thoughts and make a really important decision? And that's to go either way, right? Like, it's important that you do that, because your business still like, the people that are coming through your doors every day, or maybe you're engaging with online right now, they're relying on you to steady the ship, regardless of somebody else out there, whether it's Glassman, whether it's now Castro, whatever. They're relying on you to like still keep your shit straight, and like whatever goal you promised them when they walked in day one, whether it's, I'm going to help you become a great football player, I'm going to help you, lose the 30 pounds that you've always been trying. Like, it's your responsibility to like keep a level head for them and for the livelihood of your business, because I'm assuming nobody's like, oh, I just want to make it through this COVID and through this whole time in life. No, I want my business to go forever. And if you're going to do that, you need to take a second and really pause and think about it and create a system around that. And if you don't have, like, if you can't do that, you sure as hell better start asking some questions and reaching out to some people, or you like find somebody. I specifically believe in business partnerships. Most people are like, oh, just don't do it. Like, I believe in having a business partner who will push back and tell you, you need to think about this, because more often than not, there's like some shades of gray that you did not consider, and you need to take a level head, because there's a lot of people at stake. There's a lot of people at stake, not just your one thing. And if anything about this, it showed that a lot of people are affected by a few very small, concise words. Words do matter. And you should take your words not very lightly. They carry a lot.
Well said, Caleb. And I think, again, this whole podcast was great. I mean, I hope if people are listening, what they can at least take from it, like you just said, Caleb, is have these open conversations. And I love what you just finished with, words matter. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free.
Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't already, do us a favor, head over to the Apple Podcast app and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback for either Fern or myself, hit us up, besthouroftheirday@gmail.com, or send us a DM over on Instagram at Best Hour of Their Day. Once again, we couldn't do this without the amazing community, and you are a part of it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for supporting Best Hour of Their Day.